Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and role-playing tabletop aficionado. Welcome to my weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only livestream Crafting Annihilation, in which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you are playing characters Mannix, Kaless, Gillian, George, or Theron, look away! Turn back now! You are not allowed. This video is not meant for you. For the rest of you, welcome. We stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. You can catch up on previous episodes on my YouTube page, as well as read weekly session write-ups, God, at roguewatson.com. If you'd like to support my channel, go to patreon.com/roguewatson. Personal shout-out to my platinum patrons, Andrew and Brian, and gold patron, RPG Papercrafts. Thank you all so much for your support. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net. For streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. A bit out of sorts today, as I had to drop the wife's car off at the repair car shop. It is leaking gas, and they had to give me a ride back home, so I am currently vehicle-less. But I don't need a car to do live streams for Roll20, so let's do this thing. So a big part of what I did last week, I actually put together an entire map with the goons and all of that. I think I already archived that map on here. And it didn't even turn into a combat fight scene, even though I rolled really well on hit points that I remember, and I did that during last week's Crafting Annihilation. And I think as a DM, it's important that you have to be able to, let go, even if you want something to turn into a fight, to a certain extent, depending on how your players are doing. If they're acting really stupid or, antagonizing or something, then I think you can definitely let a fight happen. But in this case, I think my players did everything they could to avoid a fight and assess the situation carefully. And a big part of that was because none of us, and we realized we were going to be down one player, but we ended up being down two players. We only had 3 people in the party during last week's session, which I think colored their approach to a lot of situations, including that one, which was a bunch of goons beating up this poor man in an alleyway, along with his kept trying to repossess his dinosaur. And it was a way for me to basically give them a racing dinosaur. Not give it, I mean, they still ended up paying for it. Like, I expected this to be, they would have to pay some money, but maybe have to battle them or do something and, earn it through blood, if not through money. And then it turns out I just did not pay attention to how much money my level 2 players had. Kaless was able to just straight up pay the full fee, which I just kind of pulled out of my butt as 40 gold pieces. Drop that gold sack off and gain a dinosaur that way, so which is fine. That was a legitimate way of solving that crisis. Not everything has to be a battle for sure. And maybe those goons will, had they beat up those goons, then I would have probably used them to return at some point for maybe another random encounter. But since they paid him off, then I guess they kind of got away with that one. The other thing I did last week is I put together. I'm going to switch to the Port 9 Zaru map. Was the Executioner's Run sequence. And again, if you don't, these Crafting Annihilation episodes, I kind of assume that you are caught up on the series. So I'm kind of spoiling a little bit talking about last week. That's partly what these are. It's going to be me kind of breaking down what just happened, and then me also talking about what's going to happen. So, if you haven't been keeping up with the series or you don't mind spoilers, then, I mean, I definitely want people to be able to watch this series, but I guess I should mention that spoilers, if you haven't yet caught up to the last episode, which was session 3. This is the Crafting Annihilation before session 4. So that session, I gave the spoiler warning after I already explained what just happened last week. I put together this map for Executioner's Run because it's a really interesting spot, and I knew my players were going to have to go into Old City to do another mission, which was finding Inette in the from the Temple of Savras, who's being held captive currently, missing persons. And I just wanted them to give them kind of an extra quest and something to do in an urban environment. And I'm kind of front-loading a lot of the quests here because this is pretty much the only time my players will be in an urban environment in the entire campaign. I do expect them to be able to return to Port 9 Zaru a few times at least, but I'm kind of putting a lot of the stuff here because after that it's going to be a lot of jungle excursions and everything else. So it's not, unfortunately, I can't balance it too well between like go to this. I'm playing Dragon Quest right now. It does a good job of like here's a town, here's outdoors, here's a dungeon, here's a town, here's the outdoors, here's the dungeon. And it has that kind of rhythm to it. This one's not going to have that at all. It's going to be like here's all the urban town stuff, and then after all of this is done, now we're going to get into the jungle and the dungeon part of it. New hedge source. Yeah, 100 GP. And I was going to offer that as an option too. But yeah, it was a good deal. I thought, I mean, and again, I just kind of came up with 40 gold um, as just, a random amount that still seemed like a lot for them. And I knew Theron and Mannix had spent literally all their money at the Dragon Turtle. Like, I had emptied their pockets. So I was going to kind of dangle, I've dangled a lot of stuff in front of them, like, oh, you guys need money. And that's part of what, doing these quests in here is getting money. I didn't expect, I guess I didn't realize how much money I think Celeste had rolled for her wealth in the early session. I just didn't think to, like, review the tape and see how much money she had. I didn't expect anybody to be able to just straight up pay it and not even bat an eyelash about paying it either. Like, I thought they were, like, at least going to have to pool our money and be like, oh, man, we'll have to pay some of this. But Executioner's Run, I think, is a really fun location. I literally just threw this map together in Roll20, like, I guess it was Friday morning, because I didn't have it when I did Crafting Annihilation last time. Literally using just basic Roll20 assets. Like, these are just tiles and ropes right here. Just very, very simple. A whole bunch of the commoner tokens. And just to create a nifty scenario, I especially like the Velociraptor cage, being lowered in. And obviously I found a great sound effect that's just the straight up Jurassic Park raptor sounds. And that was just so much fun. And I thought this was a really, really fun situation. It was one that I didn't know. As a DM, I think one of the best things you can do is just put a situation for the players and just sit back and just see how it unravels, see how they tackle it. You don't want to over prepare too much, but you want to be able to have them, give them a situation where they can see multiple avenues on how to solve it. And usually it ends up kind of half craziness anyway, which is very much what ended up happening here. And it was funny the way the players sort of worked together by, like, just, Theron morphing into a bear and tackling a guard into the pit. Talking to the raptors was really cool. That was the other thing, is I love having a druid in this campaign because there are a ton of beasts, and obviously dinosaurs is a big part of Tomb of Annihilation, so having a druid be able to interact with beasts that way is very nice. And he was immediately able to pick up on that. He took Speak with Animals and immediately started talking to the raptors, which was cool. And they provided a distraction while Mannix ran up and saved this poor guy. So I really liked the way this unfolded. And I didn't even have a good reward or anything, and I just sprung this on the players. Like, this guy just ran up to them and said, oh, please, save him from the Executioner's Run. And they don't know him, they don't know the situation, they don't know what's going on, and they sprang to it and took the hook, which is really nice. And I made sure not to show this map too early, and that's something I mentioned several times playing on Roll20 specifically, is I don't want to just switch to the battle map, right when I give this quest, like right when they show up, because they look at a battle map and they immediately start thinking it in terms of tactical battlefield, and I would too. But if I keep them on that just overland map screen of the Executioner's Run, then they have to kind of listen to, the details and ask questions and plan it out a little better, and I just think it helps the process a bit more. And then when things do, as they often do, eventually devolve into, I'd say devolve, like, it is fun to have the battles. And at one point I had them roll initiative even when they weren't technically in combat, because they were literally like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. They were all doing things simultaneously, and that's pretty much what initiative is designed for, is to handle taking turns in a role-playing game. So I think it worked pretty well, especially considering they didn't have their full party. They were just the three of them. Plus Undril. They did grab Undril. I still haven't updated her token. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I did, Burned did give me the token tool. I did fix the bear. As you can see, there's the old bear, and then I've got the new bear token here. He actually had the, was able to extract the token, the same color that Roll20 uses, the design of the token, so I did change that, and I updated the picture. So I think that's the one Theron likes. So I'll use that one from now on. But yeah, I like this scenario a lot, and they didn't even get a very good reward out of it. Like, they were very just poor guys that had this happen to them, and they, I think, paid in just a couple silver. I don't know if Mannix actually added that to his character sheet or not. Yeah, he did. 18 silver. I hated it for your players here. There was really no way to win without losing in another way. Icarus, are you talking about the Executioner's Run, or are we still talking about the alleyway? Um, and yeah, I did put a difficult situation because the man has been sentenced, and there's not really a trial here. It's like he is being essentially executed, and the players have to sort of break the law. Although I think I tried to tease the fact that this is like a poor district, and this isn't like a professional tribunal or anything. And I'm not even sure how I was viewing how this was all going down, but in terms of, I did kind of make it that maybe, these aren't the most like righteous, justice bringers. Yeah, I gotcha. Um, so I did make a little. I tried to create like a gray area though. Like they're not like straight up murdering like lawful good, guards here. Like people are like betting and shaking hands and kind of there is. I tried to make it so it wasn't less like, oh it's just this culture happens to do this with their executions. Like no, this is kind of a bad thing that this guy got thrown in there, and he turned out to be innocent. So it was definitely, but what turned out to be a little rough is when Theron actually like wrestled the other, and I had the one guard retreat, after he was attacked. I had him back off, so it wasn't like, I didn't make like a whole bunch of guards, or I didn't make everybody fight to the death for sure. But then Theron kind of escalated a little bit when he grabbed the guard and literally like rolled down the hill and held him. Then that was a funny moment, but it was pretty messed up. And then he like commands the raptors to eat him, which, man, that dude's got a dark side. He does not take any fucks if you jack with him. And I did have the guard strike first. I mean, he was trying to arrest him, and he finally attacked him, and Theron just kind of exploded. So maybe that could be a fun role playing angle. Is that he is just kind of a simmering ball of hatred when somebody jacks with him. Leonardo asks, like the way introduced Undril as another passenger on the ship. Do you think they'll go to Camp Righteous first after they leave the port? Thanks. Yeah, we can talk about Undril. Yeah, I did that with Undril and Zendala too. Technically, introduced her early. I also used Undril to kind of introduce the Death Curse too. That was important. Which that's the other thing I want to talk about is my players. I'm worrying that because I introduced their personal quests first, and I feel like did a pretty good job with them, and then introduced the main quest later through Undril, my players care more about their personal quest than they do the main quest, which makes sense from a player standpoint. They all have their own reasons for going to Chult, and I'm trying to make the main quest be a bigger deal, and that's also what I'm doing, and I'll talk about that in a second with the mission they're on currently. But yeah, Undril, I definitely am dangling that carrot for them to go to Camp Righteous for sure. And plus, if we look at the map, let's go to the DM map of Chult. It's kind of designed. I've talked about this before. The way I'm kind of structuring the level is that like the further south you go, generally the higher level content things will be. And obviously they have to head south. It's the direction. So yes, I do think that I assume, and I need to tell that to my players. Like you guys probably need to get canoes and go down the river. Maybe I'll have Undril suggest that because she's done some research. Been like. She definitely wants the group to go to Camp Righteous. She still is adamant that like you guys are part of my team. Like you came on this ship on our ticket to go help, reinforce Camp Righteous, so this is the goal. You need to come with me. And I think they've been pretty nice with Undril so far, so I think they would entertain that. And that would be my initial hook of getting them into the jungle, is to go down this river, which makes sense to go down the river, and then go to Camp Righteous, because from there I can do Camp Righteous. Which, the fun thing there is, I keep saying Camp Righteous. In the book, everybody knows Camp Righteous has been abandoned and run over, basically. It's no longer there, and they're all at Camp Vengeance. Nobody knows that in my campaign. I'm going to make that a big shock. So they're going to show up in Camp Righteous and be like, oh, shit. This place has been run over. I may even put, like, a few undead, like, in the camp. Make it more of, like, a horror kind of scene. I could have some fun with that. And then I would also tease the goblins, and that is written in the book, is that these goblins kind of show up when they get to the end of this little dungeon area in Camp Righteous. They exit it out, and there's goblins there, and then that can lead them to Yeliark and the Vorn, which is the Shield Guardian I'll introduce, and then all of that would lead them to Camp Vengeance. So that's a lot of really good narrative hooks that keep on leading them in that whole, like this whole radius area in here, will be good, I think, just from having Undril. And if they go all the way to Camp Vengeance, and then obviously Mumbala's there, and then maybe somebody can tell them, like, Oralunga is, you know, in the western section, so they'll have a radius there. So I could see them going all the way over here and doing the entire southwest part. The weird thing is, my favorite guide, and I imagine a lot of DM's favorite guides, is Azaka, which is the secret were-tiger. And she is the other good hook, because she will lead the players to Firefinger, and she has a specific quest to, like, kind of like Undril needs to go to the Order of the Gauntlet, she needs to go to Firefinger, but to obtain, like, a relic. And I like the Firefinger dungeon. The bad thing is, and we'll talk about guides later too, is I don't know if they would take that hook, or at least take it yet, because of Undril and going in this direction. So they would probably see that and be like, well, I guess we can try to do that at some point, but we're going to go this way first. And then, like, well, would Azaka still join them and all that? So that gets interesting. Undead inside the outhouse. Hell yeah, there's going to be an undead in the outhouse. Do I have that map up here? Camp Righteous. I do, okay. But before we do that, I think they'll do Fort Belwarian also. And before I do Fort Belwarian, I want to talk about what I have planned for the mission they're currently on, which is finding Inet, which is another one from the book. I'm taking a lot. I really like the side quests in the book. They're on page 16 and 17, and there's 10 of them, and I'm using most of them. I'm just using them in either different ways or expanding on them or changing them somewhat, but I am using them like their design, which is these initial hooks to get the players to do things. And one of them is Inet, and I'm actually taking that and adapting it to a mission from the City on the Edge Adventurers League compilation pack, which has 5 like level 1 missions that are all designed to be done in Port Nyanzaru, like very newbie stuff. And I'm taking one of those pretty much beat for beat, but replacing it with the villain. I'm changing his motivation. It was like some kind of relic, and I'm changing it to his son died from the death curse. And he's got his, you know, it's that classic zombie trope of he's got the family member that's a zombie and he can't let go, and he's actually like feeding other things to the son, and then he's got a bunch of other zombies there. He's like studying the death curse, and my players are about to discover all of this because they learned where he is in the ziggurats in the southern ends. So they're going to end up going to his hut here. I went to tie the mast from Firefinger to the wreck of the narwhal. Yeah. Okay, that's a good idea. You could lead them. That cousin to Wakanga. That's a weird random detail in there too. Like I don't think Wakanga tells you that, and I don't think that character tells you that, but that is listed in the book that were-tiger in the jungle is related to Wakanga. Otherwise, I don't think there's much going on in the wreck of Narwhal, though, and unfortunately, there's no map for it. I think it's just that there's this random were-tiger there. Maybe there's like some kind of other creature like Vegapygmy or something. There wasn't as much going on there. Unlike the other wreck, which is the whatever the airship one is. That one has a cool battle map with it. But this is the hut map, and I got these from somebody else that had made maps specifically for the Adventurers League, and I'm just straight up using them. But they discover Viplo's hut here. They're attacked by zombies that burst out of this hut here. I need to put Undril on this map too, because I think she is with them, and that might make this encounter way too easy because she is like a CR2 priest. And then they discover inside, they find the journal, and I wrote up, of course, that classic storytelling device of leaving the villain's journal, and he's explaining what's going on so that they learn a little bit. They also learn that he's using the inside of the ziggurat, so that will lead them to this map, which I also used from that same person who made those maps. And this is a neat little, very, very much a mini dungeon. I mean, it doesn't get much smaller than this. But each of these has a trap, and I kind of sprinkled some, blood on the floor. And when they get to the first one, I gotta check my notes. By the way, Platinum patrons get access to my giant Google Doc of notes. Where did I put this? Is it missing an old city? Oh, maybe it's under session 4. Yeah, it went under session 4. Okay. So they find a message written in whatever I think it's ancient Omuan, Omuan. But it was translated by Viplo, and it's written on there. And it says, obtain Ubtao's favor to walk the bladed path. And the idea is there'll be mazes along the wall, and they have to trace the mazes, which is just an intelligence check to solve the puzzle. I don't want to make like a big complex puzzle here. It was just basically an intelligence check. And if they do it correctly, then the door opens, and then the rear door closes. And if they don't do it correctly, then they have to roll a dex saving throw, and these giant blades come out of the ceiling and slice through everyone, and everybody gets a dex saving throw or takes. It's not much. It's like 1d10. I mean, they're level 2, but I still wanted to make it a little bit dangerous because there's a progressive amount of rooms here. The first one is where they learn about it, and then this one is trapped, this one is trapped, and this one is trapped. And I wanted to make sure that nobody could just wait outside the, have the classic like one person in there doing the thing, so that the doors open and close to try and keep people in there, and they have to redo the trap and all that. So, because I know as a player I would try to game the system there by just having everybody wait outside the room. And the mazes get progressively more complicated, which is literally just the DC goes up to where they have to do it, but the damage and the saving throw never changes. So I just thought that was an interesting little bit in there to add a fun trap, that's not me adding it. That's part of the adventure. I just added the fact that the checks get progressively trickier. And then this scenario is really cool because they will end up. I'll use somebody with dark vision. When they step through the door, you can see here they'll first see that there are some people captured, very like ritualistic style too. They're like these pillars, and they're kind of bound to them. And the first thing that will happen is they will see Viplo, who is the halfling merchant slash wizard, which they don't really know he's a wizard, I guess. They will soon, and he pulls a lever, and it opens these doors on the side, and these zombies come pouring through, which is going to be really cool, I think. You can see here. And the initiative is going to start once the zombies are coming through, and the zombies are going to start chomping on these people, so they have to rush in and save everyone in this room, including saving Inette. Hello, Brian. Who's going to be the one in the middle, and she's got a bit more hit points, but she is not nearly as strong as a lot of like the guides and Zendala and Undril. Like she's an acolyte, which has 2d8 hit points, and I gave her almost the max hit points she could have because I figured as a party NPC she needs a little more. So it's going to be tricky to try and do this because I am basically going to play the fact that as soon as they walk through, this cutscene is going to happen, and he's going to throw the lever and this shit. So they have to initiative is going to start, and they have to get their shit together. So especially if people are waiting back in the wings or even waiting back in another room, that's going to make it even more challenging because this is not going to be. I'm hoping to create a tension here that they have to come through and rescue these people because these zombies are going to be on these people. So they have to be distracting the zombies or running down there and fighting them. Also, if they run down these stairs, which that's also part of this. It's called A City on the Edge, is the Adventurers League thing. You can find it on the DM's Guild. And I believe this is the 4th mission in there. If they try to do the stairs, it is a dex saving throw because the stairs are crumbling and kind of smoothed out in places. Or they slip down the path, they take 1d6 damage and then fall prone right in the middle of all these zombies coming out. So I'm hoping I can do that on the first person who runs down the stairs and be roll a dex saving throw. Cackling. And Viplo up here is a mage, so he hurls fire bolts at the players, and then he stands behind this pillar with the lever, which also gives him cover. So I'm hoping to create a pretty decently challenging situation. I do have 5 PCs here, and they are relatively not that wounded. Executioner's Run did not take a lot out of them, although Theron actually did use. Let's see what he's got. The fun thing is, on Roll20, I can just look at my player sheets anytime I want. He used 1 wild shape form, obviously, and he used 2 of his 3 spell slots. So unless the player's short rest. Oh, and I do have that fight beforehand. Excuse me, on the hut map too. There was 4 zombies going to fly out of there, so it's possible that will wear them down a little bit. The only thing is, and I don't know, Undra will be on that one hut. I haven't decided if I want her to go in the dungeon yet. I kind of made the rule that everybody's going to have this hidden loyalty number, and that's always a tendency, I feel like, with DMs, is they want to over-design. They want to put too many rules. I had this whole system of okay, if you do something good, that'll add a D4, and if you do something that pisses them off, it'll minus their D4 from the starting loyalty number. And I haven't decided if that's too much bookkeeping for me, and I'll just kind of play it like more esoteric and be like, okay, well, how does Undril feel about you, and would she really go into this dungeon with you, and how does she feel in terms? And I feel like no matter what her loyalty is, if she would maybe go in there to help this person, but maybe not, I don't know. So I haven't quite decided if I want Undril to go in or maybe require like a charisma check on something. They should. If Undril is there, Leonardo, that I would definitely gonna have her cast Sanctuary on Annette because she does have that spell. She's got up to 3rd level spells, I think. Yeah, just the standard priest stat block. So I don't know if you guys have an opinion on if I should include Undril, if I should make it so the players have to convince her to go down the stairs. I haven't quite decided on that. But yeah, this should be a fun scenario, and I'm guessing all of this will take a decent amount of time. Battles take more time than anything else in D&D. It's always hard to plan ahead, but one of the problems for me in doing Port Nyanzaru is I'm trying to figure out what to focus my planning on and anticipating how far my players get in the story, because there is a lot of different stuff that happens. The nice thing is I am organizing it by days. So, I already said the dinosaur race doesn't happen for another 2 days, for example, so they know they'd have to wait that long to get to that. And I've got another scripted event that's going to happen. I haven't quite decided when, but I do plan on having the undead attack Malar's throat, which is a event. It's not a side quest, but it's like one of the random events that can happen in Port Nyanzaru. It's just a horde of undead attack. I think Undril is the kind of person who would want to help. Yeah, I agree. It just gets real crowded on this map with 5. We already have 5 PCs and then her, but I think she would be there. And maybe that would add to the challenge, the fact that it's so crowded that players can't really move around very much. It's not very maneuverable. We do have a rule, I believe, that you can cross somebody's square. It's like difficult terrain to move it, so that could create a challenge. Is she a Priest of Helm? I'm actually not even sure. What is my own character? Oh, that's just the generic. I don't have her actual information on there. She might be. It was either Helm or Tyr or somebody. But yeah, she's definitely like a righteous, like, hates the undead and wants to help people. She's lawful good, all that jazz. So I feel like if she knew the situation, which the players should know the situation based on the that journal that they find, which he kind of alludes to the fact that his son is a zombie. I could do... Maybe even change the sun to a ghoul stat block? No, that might not be... I don't know the rule. So what I want to do is I want to make the death curse deadlier by tying it in with the undead. I feel like, undead is already a problem in Schult, which is cool. But I want to create not quite a zombie apocalypse scenario, but like maybe the dangers of one. Like the death curse... Maybe when people die from the death curse, they become undead. And that's like a huge horrifying thing in this universe. Because normally undead is created through like, magical or divine means. So I think that could be a really cool twist that the players are learning here. And I think that creates that global crisis problem. Like obviously a death curse is bad, but like if that's creating more and more undead, then that's real bad. And again, a lot of the point of this was to drive home the fact that the death curse, we're still at like the infancy of the apocalypse, I guess, for it. But I still need to make my players care about it. The other thing I need to do is introduce Wakanga as a, info dump NPC that they have to talk to, but they don't have access to him yet. And I kind of teased that, I think, back in the second session. We didn't go over this at all during session 3. In terms of having a NPC explain, which I guess Wakanga doesn't really know about the death curse, does he? I think he just knows. Well, yeah, I made him the contact of the Harpers. That's right. So my plan with Wakanga was he was going to tell the players about the Company of the Yellow Banner, which I had all those journal entries set up, and that was going to help them track this big thing about where the Company of the Yellow Banner went. As well as tell them about Vorn, the wizard. He's got this wizard that was in the jungles of Chult, and he left a shield guardian standing somewhere, and that's something the players can actually find. Which, giving them a shield guardian is pretty bananas. The reward is like he gives them a spell book, but fuck that. I'd rather have the Shield Guardian. So what I plan on doing that is making the Shield Guardian a C-3PO like pansy. And just have it be like super sweet and kind and like not want to fight, and I think that would be amazing. It's like the opposite of like the usual like Bender or HK-47 or Murder Bot. Just have him be the super sweet kind robot. My beautiful, beautiful sweet Vorn. Priest of Torm. Okay, just checked. Leonardo with the receipts for Undril. Thank you. I literally have that fucking page open too. I didn't even think to look. But I think I'm gonna have Wakanga like summon them after the Malar's Throat incident. So my plan is, what I assume is gonna happen tomorrow, is that obviously they're already in the middle of this mission, which is nice. So I know that they will arrive and do the hut first, and then they'll do this dungeon, and they will hopefully save Annette. God, if they actually don't save Annette, I don't have a plan for that. I may have to like pull my punches. Not even thought about that. Because you can't res people now with the death curse. How much damage can a zombie do? Can I even have a zombie attacker? Zombie averages 4 damage. Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, they're a +3. Zombies suck. I forgot about that. Zombies are just a pain in the ass because they do that undead fortitude thing, but they actually pretty much suck. Okay. I'm not worried. Plus, they only have a speed of 20. Which is why I put 6 on this map, because zombies do suck. And none of my players are playing wizards or sorcerers this time, so nobody's got the big fancy AoE spells. For everybody that watched our last campaign, Storm King's Thunder, that was a huge headache for our poor DM, Chris, who had to deal with having 2 sorcerers who were both into doing giant AoE fireballs and lightning bolts that destroyed everything. So I don't have to worry about that, because the only spellcasters I have is Druid and Bard, and I think my Druid is far more interested in wild shaping, and I think my Bard has mostly supportive spells. Have fun in China, Crazy Pat. That sounds awesome. 2 weeks. It's a shame you're going to miss so much, but thankfully, all of the episodes are on YouTube forever and ever, as long as YouTube exists. Yeah, I'm not using Syndra Sylvain at all, actually. I completely skipped Syndra. I'm not using her at all. I didn't have any kind of connection with her, or it just felt like a random... I skipped her the same reason I skipped the teleporting to Jolt bit. It just seemed kind of random and lame. But I did create a connection to Wakanga. I literally mentioned in session 1 that Wakanga was the Harper contact that they got the information about at Serac from. My players just haven't... I guess I just need to remind them again about, like, hey, you need to check your main quest about these merchant princes you need to go... I do have Golden Throne on the map in Port Nyanzaru. And if they're going to show up there, they were not going to find him. But I was going to make this, one of those timed events, so he's not going to be available to the players until the players... I think I'm going to wait until the Malar Throat incident happens, which I can show you that map. I don't think it's going to happen next session. So what I think is going to happen is they rescue Annette, they go back to the Temple of Savras. Obviously, Zatembe is very thankful, and he says, okay, I will perform whatever ritual to find whatever you need me to find. And honestly, most of my players have something they want to find. Not just the Soulmonger or a Serac. Like, I gave them all things to find, and I think I would go ahead and let them all give him, ask him those questions, but he would say, okay, it's going to take me a full 24 hours to do the ritual and get this information back to you. So at that point, they're free to either do whatever more shop, and I think he would give them a monetary reward for saving Annette also. And they can do some shopping, but the main thing I'd expect them to do is return to the inn and talk to Roka, which is going to give them the quest to go to Fort Belawarian, and I teased Roka as one of the rogues in the Temple of Savras, harassing Zatembe, and meet with the guides. And both of those, the guides especially, could take a while, because I think they want to interview all the guides. So I think those are the things that are going to happen next session, and the things I am focusing on planning for. What I think will happen in the future coming up will be going to Fort Belawarian, which my players could even decide to go there like the same day the dinosaur, like not even having completed all the Port Nyanzaru stuff yet. In fact, maybe even tonight after they meet with Roka, they could decide, oh, let's just head on over to Ortome, and we have the money, let's go to Fort Belawarian and do that. So I do need to prep some of Fort Belawarian as well. I'm assuming that is going to be hopefully just a mostly non-combat, but interesting like stealth role-playing situation. Although I do obviously have a full map for that location. They could obviously turn down Roka completely and ignore Felt Belawarian, but I think they mentioned already being interested in it, so I would assume they would be interested. And my players aren't ones to ignore content for the most part. I feel like they kind of know, like if I have something, then they will go after it. So I usually don't have to worry about that, which is nice. But the Malar's Throat thing I would happen probably like the next day. Is that literally just klaxon bells, or I'm going to have it like chiming bells. Alarm sounds in the city, and a bunch of undead stream out of the jungle and attack Malar's Throat. And this is the other thing, is I want to drive home the fact that like the undead are a big fucking problem in Chult normally, but also with the death curse on right now, it's making a bigger problem. I'm really tempted to literally introduce the fact that undead could make more undead, but I think that's a really slippery slope. Like literally make it like an apocalyptic scenario where like a zombie like is chewing on a person and that person like gets up as a zombie. That would be so fucking cool, but that might break the universe rules of D&D. I don't know. I'm debating on that one. But if I make the main quest like you're stopping this apocalypse from, like, undead are still going to be a thing in the world, but it's just the fact that they can, like, suddenly the undead can spread this, undeadness, because there's not a zombie virus in this universe. What do you guys think? Do you have any opinions on... I want to make the death curse a bigger deal, rather than just kind of mechanical, like, characters that have been... And it's such a specific niche, is it only affects people that have been risen and brought back to life, which none of my characters have a real connection with. I'm having to artificially create these, like the Viplo's son, having to create that connection of people that have died and now they're being affected by the death curse. So I already like the fact that if they die, if they've been raised and then their body is decomposing and then when they die from it they turn into a zombie. I like that. I think I can do that without breaking the universe. I just don't know in terms of creating a literal like zombie apocalypse situation where zombies could just... And the one thing I can't do, obviously, is just have a player get bitten by a zombie, attacked by a zombie, and then have them, like, roll a con saving throw or become undead. Like, I don't want to do that. So it'd be like if you died, maybe if you died specifically from undead, then you could become undead. I think that would also lead to a really cool scenario in Camp Vengeance. And I could tease the fact that Camp Righteous, they had an undead problem, so they fled and went to Camp Vengeance, and then I want to create kind of a survival scenario there where they're being besieged by a bunch of undead, and all of a sudden, like, in the infirmary area, like, a bunch of people rise up as undead. I think that could be really fun, too, but I haven't quite decided if I want to go that far into it. But I think it could be interesting. Hopefully without taking away too much of the actual, like, jungle, beast crawl. But, I mean, the undead are a big part of Chult. So, the other thing... I'll just go ahead and show Malar's Throat. Even though I don't think this will be on next session. I think it will be the session after next. I mean, I had a lot of content planned for Port Nyanzaru. I really expected my players to be in here like 2 or 3 sessions overall. Not including a side jaunt to Fort Belawarian. And this is one of the things I had planned. Now, later I learned, I actually read this part of Malar's Throat, and apparently it's this giant, like, canyon right outside the city, which it doesn't show that on the map, does it? But if you read the book, it says it's like a big canyon. Oh, yeah, I guess it does. There's giant bridges across. Yeah, and everything's like built into the cliff face and all that. Okay, yeah, I guess it's there. I never really paid attention. Well, anyway, this will just be like this bottom area right here outside the gates that I just kind of found a map for. But anyway, this is a very standard, like, there's just a bunch of undead attacking this place. There is a temple, I think it's the Temple of Timora, that people are trying to, like, get inside, and there's just a whole bunch of undead skeletons, zombies, and a single ghoul are attacking everyone, with my players rushing to their rescue. And I feel like this could be a really fun, heroic moment, kind of similar to Executioner's Run, but on a more, like, there's not really a moral argument here. It's like undead are straight up bad, people are being attacked, like, you get to feel like heroes, and I think that's important. Even with characters that are, chaotic or, like to steal from people or the roguish thing. Like, you can be a rogue, but I think I still want to drive home the fact that, this is a heroic fantasy and you are playing heroic characters, and heroes save people. Like, that's kind of the it's like step one. And this would be a good example of that, is these undead are straight up attacking people. But this could be an interesting scenario where, a few people could be killed and then maybe rise up as zombies, and I could create uh, some additional creatures, which would be fascinating to do. I'll have to think on that some more. And I think after this, I would have. God, my one Google Doc of Port 9 it was 18 pages long. I would have Wakanga, like, send a runner to say, hey, we appreciate you doing this for everyone. Come meet with me so I can tell you about the death curse problem we've had. And they know, obviously, Wakanga was a Harper contact, so there can be just a dialogue there where Wakanga explains what he knows. I don't think he knows about Omu or necessarily the death curse. He just knows that Acerak was seen in Sheol because he was the one talking to the Company of the Yellow Banner, which I have all those journal entries set up right here, which I think I would have like a daily check involved with trying to figure out what these journal entries. It'd be like a broken sending stone or something. I think that could be a cool situation. I want to discuss guides, because I think the guides are going to be a big part of tomorrow's session. With after everything else is said and done, the players can return to the inn and meet with Roka, and then meet with all of the guides. And it sounds like they want to interview all of them, because I kind of told them about the guides during last session. I gave them all the handouts. And I want to break down real quickly what I think about each guide and what I think the players will do. Right off the bat, I'm not going to have Iku or Salida there. They're not in the city. They're not available to be interviewed. I gave them the handout so they know about them. I don't think they would use Iku anyway, because she's expensive. She's a Quaddle in disguise, which is cool. But there's a lot of characters that are like something in disguise. And I feel like I could use her more effectively, like as a random encounter in the jungle. So I just kind of want to save her in my back pocket and use her. I haven't decided what or how, but I'm just going to have her in the jungle so she's not there. And Salida, I definitely want to use. She's a Yuan Ti in disguise, which is amazing, and I've got some great story plans for her, but I need the players to, for sure, have her in their party, which means finding her in the jungle. And my initial thought is to have her in Oralunga. I'm going to change Oralunga a lot, and have her there, and have her ingratiate herself into the party, like let her be rescued and all that. And I think the nice thing is I can introduce her here as a guide, so the players aren't super suspicious about her, which I think is a good key. But she's not going to be here and not available for interview or hiring. So with that, we have Azaka, Ferrell Gondolo, Hugh Hackenstone, Musharib, and River Mist, and Flask of Wine. Two of the guides are 2-in-1s. As I mentioned, Azaka's amazing. She's just a kick-ass freaking tiger, which is insane, like CR4 or something. Just a huge power boost to the players. Almost like, worrisome power boost to the players. And keep in mind, they already have Undril, who's going to journey with them to Chult. Although I may keep Undril, if they decide to go to Fort Belawarian, I'll probably keep Undril in the city, and she'll just be like, look, you guys want to do this, that's fine, come back as soon as you can, because we want to go to Camp Righteous. And then when they go to Camp Righteous, then she would officially kind of rejoin them. And then Azaka wants to specifically go to Firefinger, so I'm not sure if the players don't immediately go to Fire. I guess they can still hire her, though. But she requires... Well, let's see. She charges 5 gold coins a day and requires 30-day payment up front. That's 150 gold. or she will waive the fee if they agree to her personal quest. But if they agree to the personal quest but don't immediately go to Firefinger, what's her attitude like? It might be like maybe a charisma check involved there. But I want to encourage it because she's cool, and I think Firefinger's cool, and that's like the only reason the players would have to go to Firefinger. But I don't know if the players would want to go there before going to do Camp Righteous and Undril and all that, because Undril I think means a little bit more to them. So that could be an interesting thing. And maybe it'll be a case where they just do the whole southwest part, they get to Orlanga, and I let them like teleport back to Port Nyanzaru, and then they can pick up Azaka then because they've lost Undril, dropped her off, and then do that part in the southeast. That's, me as a DM knowing how everything works out, that's how I would do it, but obviously I'm not a player that doesn't have all that information, so I don't know, but Azaka can come free. She would just be very much wanting to go in a different direction than Undril, which could be interesting. I used her as a personal hook for an Elven Wizard player. Made her an elf from yeah, which is great. I think using all these characters as hooks to your players is one of the best tools you can do as a DM, and that's what I'm doing with Hugh Hackenstone. I'm making him a childhood best friend of Theron. They're both dwarves. So normally he charges his money and doesn't waive his fee, but because Theron has returned to to Chult to check up on him, then he would be amenable to obviously saying like, hey, let's go down to Wormheart Mine, let's get back there and reclaim this dragon, because he found Hrackhamar, basically. He found this hidden dwarven forge. He's like, man, this is an amazing find, it's even better than Wormheart Mine. Like, we need to get back there and claim it for ourselves because I've got the deed. The only problem is, there's a dragon there, but we can deal with that. And obviously that's a long-reaching quest because the players are level 2 right now. I don't expect them to take on that dragon until more like level 6. But Wormheart Mine is very far. It's on the southern tip of Chult. So when the players actually see it on the map, they're going to be like, it's down here. It's even further than Omu. And he does know the jungle. Like, he walked through all the way up north. I'm gonna say it like his backstory: the dragon torched the ship. But he would probably suggest that the players try and get a ship. So my plan with Hugh is, instead of having him join the party, which he maybe could, is he could chill in Port Nyanzaru while the players get a ship, and the players know they can get a ship by completing Captain Ordome's quest to go to Orlanga and Nangalore. So although it's an open world, I'm trying to create like these threads of this order of events that I need to happen to open up more of the world. And getting the ship would then open up the ability for them to go to Jahaka Anchorage and go after the pirates, and then go all the way down Wormheart Mine, and basically just open up like where they can all go. But I want them to at least explore like half the jungle, which is Orlanga and Nangalore down here, and that would be hopefully the Heart of Ubtao, which is a neat location. So I don't know if I would have Hugh join them or not. And obviously any of these guys they can pay. If they pay the money, then they will join for sure. But with Hugh, he would also be willing to waive the fee of joining them, but he would want them to go to Wormheart Mine ASAP. And it would be to where like he would strongly suggest getting a ship to where he could even just wait in town until they have a ship. Or he could join them. My problem is I don't want to put too many party NPCs in the party. That takes away from the players. It makes them way too powerful. It definitely creates some problems. So I don't want to necessarily let them have multiple guides, which is why I like the idea of them returning to Nyanzaru and getting different guides at different times. It's like being able to switch party members in an RPG because you're going to do their personal quest. Like you've got your set party, which is the players, and then you can pick up, in this case, you pick up an additional one instead of switching somebody out to go do that quest. So Undril would be like one, although she's not a guide, but she would be one to let them go do the southwest section. Azaka would be the one to do the southeast at Firefinger. And then Hugh they could pick up whenever they're ready to go on the ship to go down to Wormheart Mine. Ship is reward. Yeah, definitely. That's kind of how I'm... Because I do want them to gain that access, but I want them to be a firm, like, no, you're not going to be able to get a ship until you do that first. Plus, because we arrived via ship first, so I don't want to have them explore from a ship right off the get-go. And they know that there's dangerous pirates. I introduced that in session 2, I believe. There are pirates all over the place they have to worry about, so they're really not even high enough level to explore the waters. Yeah, that's a lot of my inspiration are CRPGs. That's my background. Let's see. Feral and Gondolo I skipped over. They are just jokey. They're kind of in there as a joke. They're terrible. They suck. And I even had, I think, Mannix and Kales kind of canvassed the locals and were asking about guides during the beginning of last session. And I basically had told them that Feral and Gondolo are basically charlatans. They are shitty guys. They don't really know anything. They do come with a Triceratops, which is pretty interesting and can be kind of powerful, though I would make it a very like skittish, crappy Triceratops. They say they reduce their rate for equal shares of treasures found, which I would imagine is a big turn-off for players as well. So I don't, I need to write some dialogue for them to make that kind of a funny interview, put their background in there. I do plan on using them for the dinosaur races, which that could be an interesting development for the players if they figure out their racing and maybe they can get some tips or information or something from them. Or, attempt to buy their Triceratops, which I would have that be the full price. I would not want to let them have a Triceratops this early on. But I do not see them taking Feral and Gondolo at all. I do need to still make them available as kind of a funny dialogue session, but I would be shocked if they do anything with them. Musharib is an interesting one because it's kind of in direct opposition to Hugh Hackenstone. I created this extra thing for Hugh about he found Hrakamar and wants to claim that, but then there's this other dwarf who says that that's literally his ancestral forge. The clan was driven out, so he also wants it. So I need to create an extra story beat there for the fact that there is this diametrically opposed two guides. Both of them basically the same place. Like on the map they're separate, but you can get from one to the other by just an underground tunnel. And there are supposed to be like random encounters on the way, but they're essentially connected to each other. And I don't know if the players would want to take him, especially with Theron. And it sounded like from the session he was already like role playing the distrust of the albino dwarves. But again, I need to have him available and have him be able to speak with the players, and he can talk about things, and that's all he's going to care about is going all the way down here. And he will be able to point it out on the map, I think, too. And the players will again realize, like, holy shit, this is way far away. But they might have an interesting dilemma on there about Musharib. And I do kind of plan on introducing that element, way later in the campaign when the players are down there dealing with that stuff. Have like a clan of dwarves down there as part of like Musharib's, clan. And they do want to claim Hrakamar, but Hugh doesn't want to give that up. Like, he's going to say, I've got, it's the classic, like, almost 80s movie of, like, here's, this is our thing, but the guy moves in, he's like, I've got the deed to the place, and I'm going to take it over. But in this case, that guy is Theron's friend, and they'll have fought their way into it and claimed it, so there'll be this interesting kind of twist to the story where this clan is like, oh, thank you, you can give us our home back now, and Hugh's going to be like, what? This is ours now. Which that's going to be way far in the future because I don't see them dealing with any of that stuff until, as I said, after they've explored a good half the jungle and gotten the ship and probably dealt with the pirates before going all the way down there. And then finally, River Mist and Holy crap, I can't say their names. River Mist and Flask of Wine are two Tabaxi scouts that are basically they work for the Zentarum, or they owe money to the Zentarum. And I'm going to have Roka as one of his rewards for them helping him infiltrate Fort Belawarian is giving access to them for free. Basically, he like calls in their debt and says these guys will work for you. Which I would have them be kind of sneaky and shifty, but not evil. Anyway, like they're not out like to murder the players or hinder them at all. But they are definitely interested in their own self-preservation, at least at first. And always these characters, want to make it like an RPG. It's all of these characters can be molded, and those relationships can be forged to make all of these characters more loyal than what they start off, with the exception of Salida, who is a Yuan-Ti. But they, can potentially become very close-knit party members, and also dinosaur food, or, that's one way I can make death more meaningful. Since our campaign, I don't usually kill players that much, but I could definitely kill their friends and companions. There are several mine markers on the map. Do you have plans or a background story for any of those extra mines? I wish they weren't there. No, I don't. they're weird because they're in spaces that the players wouldn't normally go either. Like all these places to the west right here. I think they're supposed to just be like Chult is they mine gems out of these mountains. So that's why I would just explain to them if they ask. Like that's probably where the gem. Well, if I do that, my players probably want to go there and get the gems out. But no, I do not have anything planned for them. I don't know what I'm going to do if my players decide to randomly head that direction and excavate a mine. Holy crap! There's just so much content here between all these locations and the jungle crawl that I haven't thought to create like an extra mine location. I would probably just hand wave it and be like, okay, you find a mine. It's fully got, there's people camped out there, and it's a safe place to long rest. Basically, that's what these mines are, with the exception of obviously Wormheart Mine down here, which is a dangerous mine full of kobolds and a red dragon. So that is an important mine to go to, but otherwise, I'm not too much of a fan of it. Also, find it's weird that the player's map has the undead like color designation on here. Like, why would the players instantly know that information, that where the undead is heaviest? It makes sense to maybe know that around the city, but like having it, I don't know, it's just weird. It's nice on the DM's level because you can see, and there's a thing about the random encounters, like you roll and then you see where they are exactly, and that determines what random encounter they get. And it's a no undead, light undead, or heavy undead, basically. He's the one near fort. It's a zombie apocalypse scenario. Okay, that sounds cool. Yeah, I'm liking that idea more and more with the driving home the undead as being a problem. 'Cause that's something all players can understand, all the player characters, versus just having it like, oh well, people that have died once before that have been risen are slowly dying. That is a problem, but it's not a huge concern. And I haven't introduced the time limit mechanic at all because I don't like the idea of time limiting my players, because that would prevent them from, enjoying the goddamn adventure. So I don't want to do that. But I might have something like, I think having the undead be more getting worse and worse would be a good time constraint without being a literal time constraint. So I do like the idea of making the undead part of the death curse. Having it be the death curse is making more undead, making them more aggressive and all those things. And that's a big problem in Chult because Chult already has a large undead population, which is a big problem. So anyway, River Mist and Flask of Wine. So I'm kind of offering these two to the players because if they do the Fort Belawarian quest, like Roka will basically say, I'm going to give you money to do this, but I'll also call in this debt for these two guides as a reward, and you guys can just have them for free, which would be pretty huge. And they don't have any personal quest associated with them, so I'd have to either come up with a personal quest or just be like, not every NPC needs a personal quest. Like, their quest is they just want the treasure. Like, they may occasionally find some treasure they don't tell the players about, or they kind of demand a share of the treasure or something. And maybe the players will not like them and there'll be some antagonism, or maybe they will like them and that could be a fun relationship. I don't know. Or they could just turn them down straight up and say, like, we don't need these shifty cat people. So those are the guides. That's kind of what I'm going to go through. I assume we're doing the guides tomorrow in terms of the actual interviews. I don't see the players having to hire them necessarily yet because I don't see them entering the jungle yet, because they still want to hang around for the dinosaur races, which is happening in 2 days' time. This is day one still that they're on, like afternoon day one. And I assume they're going to go to Fort Belawarian as a side jaunt because they already talked to Ortome and said that she can bring them to Fort Belawarian and do that. And I don't see the fort as being a big scenario, although it could be. I haven't loaded this map in a while. All kinds of blurry. It is a big map, though, isn't it? But it's not meant for... There we go. It's not meant for combat. It's just meant for the players to go in and see that this is a legitimate force in Chult, and their goal is to sneak inside and get this information from the commander. Which, the interesting thing is, Roka is designed as the one they have to sneak in here. And my party has 2 rogues. One of them, granted, is kind of incompetent when it comes to doing rogue stuff, but he's more of the detective. but I could see my players wanting to accompany him for sure. Rob's asking, where did the party meet Roka? So they met him in the Temple of Savras in the about the middle of the last session. He was when the parties show up at the Temple of Savras, they see a bunch of kind of roguish figures in an argument with Zatembe, the head priest, and he kind of brushes them off. They're looking for Artis Cimber, and then there's a little bit of an exchange with the players there. Mannix obviously speaks up, and then one of the rogues, the one that kind of stood in the back and didn't do much, wrote a note and passed it to Mannix saying, "Meet me in the inn tonight," and that was Roka, and that's how I'm introducing him. So he is a Zentarum agent, which Zentarum have played a major role in our, for sure in our last campaign. Good lord, in Storm King's Thunder. And I'm gonna make the canon. One thing is because we do multiple campaigns and we're creating this kind of shared universe. So I'm gonna make that his boss is actually Brysis from our last campaign because it was revealed that she kind of rose the ranks of the Zentarum and took over like a faction, kind of similar to how Kalinar did in Princes of the Apocalypse, and he became a faction leader of Order of the Gauntlet. So that'll be, I think, a neat reveal, and maybe that would make them trust Roko more. If he teases the fact that oh, my boss, my mistress, and they're like, well, who's your boss? And then he can be like, oh, it's a tiefling woman out of I'd have to look that up, Waterdeep or Baldur's Gate or somewhere. Which I think that might be everybody would clue into, like, oh, okay, I guess you're on the level because you work for Brysis. Even though the player characters wouldn't know that, but the players would, because that was one of their player characters in a previous campaign. So funny bit of metagaming there. I have not planned any of this out. That's something I will need to do today and probably tomorrow, just in case they get to Fort Belawarian tomorrow. I don't think they will. I absolutely 100% did have Morgan Freeman in mind for the voice. I'm glad you picked up on that. That was my best Morgan Freeman impression. I had to do so many voices in the last session because I had to do all the handouts for the guides, and I wanted to roll in with their voices, and I had to sit there, and before we went on, I practiced through all of them because switching voices that quick, that many times is a challenge. But yeah, I was Morgan Freeman for Zatembe. That's funny. Because I do the same old man voice for like everything, and I thought, all right, let me try to switch it up a little bit. But yeah, I don't see us necessarily getting to Fort Belawarian. I think what's going to happen is we're going to do the Vipla. We're going to complete that quest of rescuing Annette, which has 2 battles. It's got the one in the hut, and then the one, that cool, little mini dungeon with the traps and the zombies pouring out. And then they'll return to Zatembe. There'll be a little dialogue there. They'll get some reward, and then I think from there they will return to the inn, because I'll make it like, okay, it's like, evening approaching now. And then they can talk with Roka a bunch, get the quest for here, kind of grill him about what's his deal is. And then talk with the guides. I'll have the guides there too. And I'm guessing all of that will take up the session, because plus 2 of our players weren't there last week, so we have to level them up to 2. So we'll spend a little time there, and I think I'm going to do a little bit of like, hey, since you 2 weren't there, during these morning things, is there anything you guys want to do specifically while that's going on before you, join up with the other players to continue that quest? And one of those things will be like George meeting with his mentor. I've got that written out as a dialogue sequence to do his personal quest update, that kind of stuff. So I think all of that will take up next session, and I could see the session after that being going to Fort Belawarian and doing all of that. And basically, this could take up a full session depending on how the players want to play it. I'll have to really flesh it out, which could be a really neat situation in terms of like stealth mechanics and distractions, having multiple things going on. That could be a really neat sequence. Does this have the lower end on it? That might be a separate map. I think that's a separate map. It's like the Bailey or whatever, the main building. But I'm looking forward to using this one for sure, and not as a dungeon, but just as a place. And then I think after that would be like that Malar's Throat map with the undead attacking, and then meeting with Wakanga, and then that's still maybe day 2 or maybe day 3, and then day 3 is the dinosaur races. So honestly, we could be in Port Nyanzaru for all of next the session after this one as well, just because I think there's a lot of really great content to be had. And then we would finally explore the jungle, and I haven't quite decided, but I think I'm going to go ahead and level the players up to 3 after that, because at that point they'll have done, quite a few more battles. There's the Malar's Throat one, there's that rescuing Annette, there'll be all of Fort Belawarian, and then I'll have probably taken them, a solid 2 or 3 sessions, maybe even 4 sessions somewhat. So I think I would level them to 3 during that final long rest in Port Nyanzaru before going to the jungle. All right, I think that will do it for this week's session of Crafting Annihilation. Go about an hour each week. If you like my content, do check out my Patreon at patreon.com/RogueWatson. And of course, tune in tomorrow for our next Tomb of Annihilation live play session. See you all then.